Yo, what's good, Machine Masters? This is D-Ski the Ill Eagle, and today I'm interviewing the one and only Anomaly, aka Sound Oracle. Let's get into it.
I'm a producer, sound designer chief sound designer for Timbaland, Polo the Don. I've done sound design for other people like Don Cannon, Lil Jon, just a host of people. But mainly, man, I'm just a music lover at heart, man, since a kid, Actually, man, it started, funny enough, man, I used to rap when I was a kid, man, maybe 12 years old. And, I had all these ideas for beats. So I started collecting records. And I would take the records to the cats that would make beats for me. And they would make decent beats, but I would hear stuff in my mind. And I'm like, maybe I should just start making my own beats. So I originally came into it as a producer. And, I just started making beats. I had all these beats and not really many guidelines to go off of, because everybody in my area was into other things. No one was into making music. I came up in Alexandria, Virginia, which is right outside of DC. And I was the only person I knew that did this. So I just kind of formed my own guidelines, and I didn't know that with making music, I was making sounds that were a little different than everybody else was making. And it wasn't until years after that other people heard my sounds, other producers, and asked me about sounds and sound design. And that's how I became a sound designer, just based off my own sounds I made for myself. Man, I've worked on a lot of stuff on the Magna Carta album. Picasso, Tom Ford, On the Run, Fuck Up the World, Heaven. There's probably a few others I'm forgetting on that. And also Justin Timberlake, Suit and Tie, Tunnel Vision, Spaceship Coupe. I had a lot of sounds on the sound design. Beyonce, for Beyonce. Man, 50 Cent, Baby by Me, Robin Thicke, Sex Therapy, Christina Aguilera, I Hate Boys, Gucci Mane, Chris Brown, Lil Wayne, Chia, should I say. And it's a few other ones in there that I'm sure I'm forgetting, but I've been blessed to work with quite a few people. Man, it's crazy, man. It goes back to when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I heard hip hop on the radio for the first time, and I was just in a trance, man. Like, I remember I'm sitting in my aunt's house, and something came on the radio. I was like super young. It was like Lottie Dottie or something. And I'm just mesmerized by whatever this type of music is. And everybody else around me is just carrying on with their day. And I'm like stuck. And I'm like, holy shit, what is this? What is happening to me? And funny enough, later on that year, my god sister, it was back in the boombox time, she showed me and my god brother how to record our voices on a boombox and listen back to them. And for some reason, that was like the most amazing shit to me in the world. I was like, wait, I can record something and then just listen to it. And after that, I was just like, this is what I want to do. This hip hop music thing is what I want to do. I thought I wanted to be a rapper, but it turns out I wanted to be a producer. And I made a promise to my moms back then. I was like, I'm going to make it in music. And she was like, well, what do you need? And I'm like, nothing. I'll figure it out. Because I'm like, basically, we don't have anything. So don't worry about that. I knew stuff was expensive, but it's just been like a driving force in my life, man. And I knew what I wanted to do with my life since I was like 6 years old. And that's really all I've done since. Other than tape decks, my first piece of equipment, not very professional, but it was a DJ mixer. You had the mixers that had I think it had 4 banks and a tap sampler with like 5 seconds per bank that you could record something. I had that, but probably on the professional side, I got a at least this SR16 drum machine that somebody let me hold. And I used to rock out on that. Then I got an S2000, a Kai S2000 sampler, and I could sample on it and everything, but I'm like, I can't make no sequences. Like, I can't, like, how do I play the sounds? It had like the button where you can demo the sound, but I'm like, yo, I can't hear no sounds. And then I learned how to MIDI up the SR16 to the S2000, so I could sequence inside the drum machine, sequence the sounds from the S2000. And crazy enough, that's how I learned about MIDI too. I moved from Baltimore to Atlanta, which is where I'm currently at. I had a studio in Baltimore. A typical studio, around the way, rappers come through and all that stuff. And I had beats, and everybody's like, yo, your beats are just insane or whatever. But the area at the time, it didn't have a lot of growth potential, especially for what I thought I was doing. So a friend of mine, Brian Kidd, as a matter of fact, he had just got down here to Atlanta. He's like, oh, you should move to Atlanta. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Like, it's kind of risky. Now, why I was saying I don't know, because it wasn't like I was popping in Baltimore like that. So I told my girl about it at the time. And I'm like, yo, this fool's talking about I should move to Atlanta, just come down there on the Humble. And she's like, yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that. And I'm like, what? Are all y'all smoking? Like, really? So, I started thinking about it after a while. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And she's like, yeah. So, when we going? Then it turned to when are we going? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know if I was going. Now it's when are we going? So, she kind of called my bluff. He kind of called my bluff for a while. I'm like, fine, I'm going. So I set a date. My girl at the time, she got rid of her job, got rid of her crib, and we went to Atlanta with 2 cars on bald tires, a few bags of clothes, and I had an MPC and some monitors. And no rent, no jobs, no nothing. We found a guy who was willing to rent me a condo to have me sitting there for a while, and I called a guy, and I'm like, yo, we don't have any money. I'm gonna make it in music, though, and I promise I'll pay the rent on time every month. And he found that so laughable that he was like, oh, okay, cool. So, man, we went down there. And at the time, she was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get." She's like, "I'll work. We just gonna focus on your music, which is dope. But at the same time, it's just added pressure. You know what I mean? Because like I can't let myself down. I got somebody depending on me. I can't let her down either. So she worked, and I went to a strip studio in Atlanta on Northside Drive. Everybody who's been here knows that there's just a ton of studios on Northside Drive. And every day I just drove back and forth, was knocking on doors and begged cats to like basically listen to my music. And I had met Polo one time before, so he remembered me. I went to Zach's studio where he was at, and I remember one night I went down there, and whoever was at the desk like, yo, just wait. Polo said he'll see you. And it was like 2 hours I was waiting. It was raining. I'm outside because they wouldn't let me in the studio. It's pouring down rain. I'm just outside, drenched. And then finally some guy came out like, yeah, he'll see you now. And I finally went in. I played him some beats, and he's like, yo, these beats are amazing. He's like, yeah, we definitely gonna work together. These beats are crazy. But then he's like, well, where do you get these sounds from? These drums and these samples and just these sounds. And I'm like, I make them, or I collect them, or I find them, or whatever. And he's like, well, how much of this do you have? I'm like, at this point, probably 8-10 years worth. And he's like, what? Can you do this for me? And I'm like, sure, no doubt. So, we ended up building a bond. He cut me a check. Big up to the homie Polo. He cut me a check, and Yeah, that was all she wrote. Then he went to LA shortly after that. And he keeps with Interscope at the time. And he called me one day. He's like, man, can you come to LA? And I'm like, yeah, bet. Yeah, let's go. And so I went out to LA, and something funny happened to me on the plane. This is a real funny story. I told him, he was like, oh man, you got to tell my man the story. So we go to the kitchen, and his man turned out to be Timbaland. And I'm like, oh shit, it's Tim. So now I'm like, I'm in LA, I'm at Interscope, I'm with Polo. Now it's Tim. So I'm telling Tim the story. You know, he laughing, it's funny. He comes back in the studio and he's listening to the music that Polo was doing at the time. And he's like, hold up, man. He's like, something is different. He's like, I see you all the time, and I was basically here like yesterday, and now it's totally different. He's like, what's going on? Like, where are these sounds coming from? And Polo's like, oh, it's my man right here. So Tim played it cool. He was like, oh, all right. Just kept listening. And then later on that night, Tim called me, and he was like, I don't know what you're doing or how you're doing it for Polo, but I need you to do this for me for the rest of my life. And that's how I ended up hooking up with Timbaland. The answer to that is actually funny. It's a track by Drag On from the Rough Riders. And that was actually my first real placement. So to give you a backstory on that, I went to college at Morgan State. And part of the reason why I went to college at Morgan is because I knew a lot of cats from New York went to that college. So I became cool with them. I used to go home with them on the weekends until I learned New York. And then after that, I used to skip class, drive to New York, and I knew all the, the labels and things were labels and studios. And I used to drive around the block or try to park outside, but they move your car, they tell you to move. So I would drive around the block playing my music. And I did that for like a year. And then finally one day, A&R from Def Jam saw me parked outside. I'm playing my music, and she's like, yo, I see you out here all the time. I had Virginia plates on my car at the time. So she's like, I see you out here all the time with these Virginia plates. You playing this music. Like, what's your deal? So I told her, what it was. I want to be a producer. I'm trying to get signed. I'm trying to get heard. So she's like, you can tell it's against her better judgment. She's like, all right, come upstairs. And I'll hear it. And so we went upstairs, and she just started playing the stuff in her office. And she was like, oh, wow, like, these beats are incredible. She had a system in her office that was crazy loud. So people started coming by the office. And one of the first people that came by was Drag's manager. I think his name was Mel at the time. And he came in, he closed the door, and I was playing this one particular track, and he's like, I need that track. How much you want for that? And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, I don't even know how much. I never sold a beat in my life. But, we ended up working it out, and that track, it turned out to be a song for Drag On. I think the name of it was Dirty Funk. And it had the same sample as the Kanye and Common. I forgot the name of the song that they did. It was years before that, but it was the same sample. And I ended up getting a deal with Rough Riders, like based off of that song. But it just came from that year of just driving around, not even knowing if anyone's really hearing me or even seeing me. And it just so happened that somebody or a few people were paying attention, and then I finally got a chance to get in. And like they say, man, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. So I came in with an arsenal of stuff to play, and I ended up getting the deal. The first thing I will say is congratulations for doing it now, because you don't have to drive to New York and circle the block and play your music from your car. You know what I'm saying? It's the first thing you should do, man, is do the music that you want to do. Don't necessarily do what's trendy if that's not your internal compass. You know what I mean? Because the worst thing that could happen is you do something just because it's trendy. It might not be you, but then you blow up for it, because now that's what people are gonna want. And you're gonna be stuck in this pretending loop when you really want to be doing this, but you're doing this. You know what I mean? So do what works for you. And I guess that kind of goes into the second rule is be different and be dope. As long as you're those two things, I think you will win. Example I give all the time: if you're a rapper and you just sit on the couch all day and eat chips, man, if you can rhyme about that and make it sound so fly that other people are like, yo, I want to sit on the couch and eat chips too. Then, you know what I'm saying? You win. But just do something that's a little bit different. It can have elements of what people like and what's happening now, but it has to be something about you that is different. Because, you know, that's kind of where all this hip hop comes from. Back in the day, you couldn't sound like anybody else. That was bite. And, you know, that was like the forbidden thing. Like, you can't bite off anybody. So do something that's different, and whatever it is for you, no matter how left field or how different it is, as long as it's dope. Like, make it dope, make it cool. Don't be corny, you know, because a lot of people will be different, but they'll be corny to the point where they're the only person that likes it. Because it's music. At the end of the day, you're an entertainer, and music is to be heard by other people. So the fact that if you're dope or not, it's not really up to you. It's the response to your music. You know what I mean? So the two main things are be different and be dope, because you'll stand out and people will gravitate towards your music, you know. Another thing, of course, people hear it a million times, but the reason why you hear it a million times is because it really works. Networking. Meet people, man. You know, I'm very introverted by nature. So it took me a long time to learn this rule, but you have to get out there, get in people's faces, play what you got, you know, with all the confidence that you have that is dope, and just build with other people, because you can be the most talented guy in the world, but if you're in a room by yourself forever, no one will ever hear it, no one will ever know it, and the worst thing that can happen to you is you'll go to your grave with this greatness that no one ever knew about. Like, you have to let the world know how great you are. Collab with other cats, reach out to other cats on the internet. You may be down here, they may be way up here. It doesn't matter. Like, reach out, keep reaching out. You know what I mean? Until you get some type of response. Someone will respond to you. If you follow all those rules and you're really doing the best you can, someone will respond to you and you will get somewhere, versus not doing anything and just making dope shit and just saving it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, network and collab, man. That is key. That is super key, because you can be as talented as you want to be, and that's only 50% of the battle. You know what I mean? You have to have friendships, you have to have alliances, you have to know people that can get you further than you are for you to get further than you are. And that's just the bottom line of it, you know?